Earlier, you learned that structures allow you to group related code in a single package. You may also recall that since structs are value types, every new instance creates a copy of its data, and this means that there's no linkage between the original and the new instance. Now, what if you want a way to encapsulate your code but still maintain that link? In Swift, classes allow you to do just that. Over the next few minutes, you'll discover what classes are, explore a few examples where classes might be used to solve a common problem, and examine the Swift syntax for creating a class. To begin, imagine the following scenario. Mario wants to improve Little Lemon's signature chocolate chip cookie recipe and asks his colleague Adrian to help. The recipe is updated on the system so that all other chefs have live access to the most recent version. Both Mario and Adrian read and modify the same recipe on the system. This is an example of using a class to share a copy of the data. A class is a reference type, and unlike value types, when a reference type is assigned to a variable or a constant, a copy of the data is shared. Don't worry too much about what this means now. You'll learn more about the differences between value and reference types later. Let's move on to define a class instance for Mario's chocolate chip cookie recipe. To define a class, I insert the class keyword followed by its name recipe and a pair of curly braces. Inside the curly braces, I can add properties and methods. For now, I'll declare a variable property named ingredient of the type string array. When declaring properties without an initial value in a class, the compiler will notify you that your class has no initializer. A memberwise initializer is a method to set the initial property values of a new instance, and it's important to note that a class doesn't come with an auto-generated memberwise initializer like a structure. To fix this error, I can create a custom initializer method in the class. An initializer method, also referred to as an initializer, allows you to specify the initial property values when creating an instance. To add an initializer to the recipe class, I use the init keyword followed by the open and close parentheses. Like functions, I can specify the parameters of the initializer. Typically, and by convention, I can name the parameters the same as the properties. Inside the initializer body, I refer to the class instance by typing self, followed by the dot syntax and the property name. Now I can use the assignment operator to assign the parameter value to the property. For properties with a default value, I won't need to initialize that particular property value inside an initializer. For example, I can add an isAvailable property and set it equal to false. The default value is the initial value for a property unless the initializer set it to another value. With this recipe class instance, the recipe ingredients data and isAvailable state is shared across variables. If two variables share a reference to the same recipe class, and the recipe's ingredients property is set to a different set of ingredients, then both variables refer to the same data. If the recipe's isAvailable property is set to true, then both variables also refer to the same state. Now I can create recipe instances using the initializer. For example, I instantiate a recipe instance with cocoa powder and flour for the ingredients parameter and assign it the Mario recipe constant. Classes are an important part of programming in Swift. You've now learned that, like structures, classes are general-purpose building blocks for your program's code. You've also learned that classes are reference types, and this means that a copy of the data is shared across instances. You explored a few practical examples and should now be able to define your own classes using the appropriate Swift syntax.